The galactic assembly chamber floated above the blue gas clouds of Helior Prime. Light from 3 suns passed through crystal walls, painting the hall in shifting colors. Hundreds of species filled the circular tiers, beings of metal, flesh, plasma, and forms no human word could describe. At the very bottom tier sat the newest members. Humans. They were given the lowest seats, far from the central light. Ambassador Elias Monroe stood straight anyway. His uniform was plain. No glowing skin. No floating ornaments. Just fabric, metal, and tired eyes. Across the chamber, the war map hovered, stars blinking red as they fell one by one. The Threxian Dominion has broken through the Orion line, announced a tall, insect-like being. Its voice echoed through translators. 3 more systems lost in 40 hours. Murmurs spread. Fear. Calculation. Then laughter. It came from the upper tier. A massive, armored alien leaned forward. His species, the Carvax, were legendary conquerors. Claws like blades. Voices like thunder. And what? The Carvax warlord said, amused. Do the humans suggest? Several delegates turned to look down. Some tilted their heads. Some blinked extra eyes. Others barely bothered to hide their smiles. Humans were new. Humans were weak. Humans had no ancient fleets, no living star weapons, no psychic empires. They had survived barely 2 centuries in space. Elias felt the weight of it, but his voice stayed calm. We suggest, he said, that you stop fighting this war the way you always have. The chamber went quiet. The Threxians were unstoppable. A hyperlogical species of crystalline intelligence. They predicted enemy behavior before the enemy knew it themselves. Entire civilizations had fallen because the Threxians outthought them. The Assembly's greatest minds had failed. And now a human dared speak. The Carvax warlord laughed openly. You have lost 2 colonies already, he said. Your fleets are scrap. Your soldiers break under psychic pressure. Why are you even here? Elias met his gaze. Because, he said, we don't fight wars to prove we are strong. We fight to survive. That word echoed strangely in the chamber. Survive. Far from Helior Prime, the human fleet drifted in silence near a dead star. Admiral Rana Okoye watched the tactical display. Red markers surrounded her position. Threxian scouts. Too many. Human ships were smaller. Less advanced on paper. Their drives ran hot. Their armor cracked instead of regenerated. But every ship was modified. Nothing human stayed standard for long. Admiral, said Commander Hayes, enemy probability matrix predicts our retreat vector with 98% certainty. Rana smiled faintly. Good, she said. Then they'll never see this coming. The human fleet powered down. Not cloaked. Not hidden. They went dark. To the Threxians it made no sense. Power loss meant surrender, or death. The crystalline minds recalculated. Error rates spiked. Back at the assembly, the war map flashed again. Another system fell. A sleek, floating being of pure light turned toward Elias. The Threxians do not make mistakes, it said. Your people cannot change that. Elias took a breath. No, he said. But we can become the mistake they never planned for. The chamber stirred. What is your proposal? Asked the assembly speaker. Elias activated a small hologram. It showed something strange. Not a weapon. Not a fleet. A pattern. Chaos layered over logic. We call it adaptive strategic uncertainty, Elias said. We do not outgun the Threxians. We do not outthink them. We make thinking dangerous. Some delegates recoiled. Madness, whispered one. Primitive, said another. The Carvax warlord snarled. You want us to trust our survival to randomness? Elias shook his head. Not randomness, he said softly. Human creativity. Near the dead star, Threxian scouts moved in. Perfect angles. Perfect formations. They fired. Nothing happened. Human ships suddenly ignited their engines. Not forward but sideways, using unstable gravity slingshots no sane species would attempt. 2 human ships exploded. 3 more vanished into distorted space. The Threxians adjusted. Too late. A human cruiser rammed straight into a Threxian command node and detonated, not with fire but with cascading logic disruption. The crystalline minds screamed across the void. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a Threxian battle plan collapsed mid-execution. Back in the assembly, alarms rang. The war map flickered. One red system turned yellow, then green. Silence fell. The speaker turned slowly toward the human ambassador. What just happened? Elias allowed himself one breath of relief. That, he said, was a test. He looked up at the towering alien powers. And we just learned something very important. The chamber leaned in. The Threxians, Elias said, can predict everything, except us. The Galactic Assembly had not known silence like this in centuries. The war map hovered in the center of the chamber, still glowing green where a Threxian system had just been reclaimed. Delegates stared at it as if it might change back if they blinked. The speaker's many eyes slowly focused on the human ambassador. Explain, the speaker said. In detail. Elias Monroe nodded. He had expected disbelief. What he had not expected was fear. The Threxians rely on prediction, Elias began. Every battle they have ever won followed a path they calculated before the first shot was fired. We didn't break their ships. We broke their certainty. The Carvax warlord slammed a claw against his platform. You sacrificed ships, he growled. You call that strategy? Elias met his gaze without flinching. We call it choice, he replied. Those crews volunteered. They knew the odds. Humans accept loss if it creates opportunity. That unsettled many in the chamber. Most galactic species avoided loss at all cost. Human history, however, was written in sacrifice. A slender alien with mirrored skin spoke next. You are suggesting your people are unpredictable by nature? Elias nodded. Not just unpredictable. Emotional. Creative. Stubborn. We break patterns even when it hurts us. A murmur spread. Some delegates leaned closer. Others leaned away. Far from the assembly, the human fleet regrouped near the shattered remains of the Threxian command node. Admiral Rana Okoye stood on the bridge of the HNS Defiance. The ship bore deep scars. Hull plates were missing. Emergency lights flickered. But it was alive. Status report, Rana said. Fleet strength at 62%, Commander Hayes replied. Enemy confusion confirmed. Threxian response times are slowing. Rana studied the data. Because they are thinking, she said. And for the first time, thinking hurts them. She turned toward a large tactical display. Human battle logs scrolled rapidly. Notes, voice recordings, handwritten comments scanned and uploaded mid-combat. Human chaos preserved as data. Send everything to Earth Command, she ordered. All mistakes included. Hayes hesitated. Even the failed maneuvers? Especially those, Rana said. Failure teaches faster than success. On the Threxian homeworld, something unheard of occurred. The core intelligence fractured. Millions of crystalline minds resonated in disharmony. Their predictive webs showed branching futures, too many too fast. Human behavior appeared again and again as a variable that could not be reduced. A Threxian high strategist pulsed with alarm. Human probability curves do not stabilize, it transmitted. They escalate under pressure. Another strategist responded. They are irrational. They are adaptive, the first corrected. And adaptation exceeds logic. For the first time, the Threxians altered a doctrine older than their civilization. They chose caution. Back at the assembly, new data streamed in. Human skirmish groups were striking supply lines. Human engineers were modifying captured Threxian tech within hours. Human pilots were using damaged ships as bait. And worse, other species were copying human tactics. A massive aquatic delegate spoke with concern. If this spreads, the structure of galactic warfare will change. The speaker turned to Elias again. Is that your intent, Ambassador? Elias answered honestly. We intend to live. That simplicity carried weight. In a private chamber above the assembly hall, representatives of the oldest powers met in secret. The Carvax warlord paced. Humans are dangerous, he said. Not because they are strong, but because they inspire chaos. A tall, ancient being of energy replied. Or because they remind the galaxy what freedom looks like. The Carvax snarled. Freedom is inefficient. Yet effective, the energy being replied. A new fear was forming, not of the Threxians but of humanity's influence. On Earth, crowds watched the news feeds in silence. Human victories were small. Human losses were heavy. But hope spread faster than fear. Factories worked nonstop. Scientists slept beside their machines. Artists painted war posters and stories. Humanity was unified, not by command but by purpose. Survive. Aboard the Defiance, Admiral Okoye recorded a message. If anyone finds this, she said calmly, know that we didn't win because we were smarter or stronger. We won because we refused to fight the war they expected. She paused. And this is only the beginning. In the depths of space, Threxian fleets began to reposition. Not forward. Not back. They hesitated. And across the galaxy, ancient powers began asking a new question. If humans could do this as allies, what would they be as enemies? The Galactic Assembly reconvened under false calm. Officially, it was a strategy summit. Unofficially, it was a trial of trust. The war map showed mixed colors now. Green human victories. Yellow contested systems. Red Threxian strongholds pulling back, reshaping their lines. No one had expected that. The speaker addressed the chamber. The Threxian advance has slowed. This is unprecedented. We must decide our next move. Eyes turned again, inevitably, toward the humans. Ambassador Elias Monroe stood quietly. He had learned that humans no longer needed to demand attention. The galaxy watched them now on its own. A thin, spined delegate from the Verity Collective spoke. We propose expanding human authority within the coalition fleets. The Carvax warlord's claws tightened. Madness. They have proven clever, not dominant. Another voice joined, smooth, calm. They have proven disruptive, said the Luminarch envoy. That may be what this war requires. Debate ignited. Some wanted humans elevated. Some wanted them contained. Some whispered of eliminating the variable entirely. Elias listened. He said nothing. On the far edge of human-controlled space, something old came back to life. A facility buried beneath the ice of Europa cracked open for the first time in decades. Lights flickered on. Machines hummed. Project name, Prometheus Vault. Only 12 humans in the galaxy knew it existed. Admiral Rana Okoye was one of them. She stood inside the vast chamber, staring at structures that looked less like machines and more like ideas made solid. We swore never to use this, said Dr. Samuel Ivers, chief architect of the project. Rana nodded. We swore we'd never face extinction again. The vault held weapons, but not in the way the galaxy understood weapons. These did not destroy ships. They destroyed assumptions. In Threxian space, the enemy was changing. Threxian fleets began moving in unpredictable patterns, imitations of human chaos but flawed. Their logic cores tried to simulate creativity. It failed. Their losses increased. A Threxian commander transmitted an emergency signal. Human tactics cannot be mirrored. They evolved during execution. The core intelligence responded with cold clarity. Then isolate the humans. Orders went out. Human colonies became targets. The first strike came without warning. A human agricultural world, Lisa 7, vanished in white light. No fleet engagement. No battle. Just annihilation. The galaxy gasped. On Earth, the news silenced cities. Admiral Okoye watched the feed with clenched fists. They crossed the line, Hayes said quietly. Rana turned. No, she said. They confirmed it. She activated a secure channel. Begin Phase 1, she ordered. Back in the assembly, chaos erupted. Delegates shouted. Systems demanded retaliation. Others called for surrender. The Carvax warlord stood tall. This is what happens when you provoke monsters. Elias Monroe finally spoke. They didn't destroy Lisa 7 to win, he said. They did it to test us. The speaker hesitated. And your response? Elias raised a small device. A human data key. We reveal something we never wanted to, he said. The chamber dimmed. A projection filled the air. Human history. Wars. Failures. Near extinctions. Then something darker. Humanity's greatest enemy had never been aliens. It had been itself. You see innovation, Elias said. But what you don't see is restraint. Humans learned long ago that we must limit our own power. Images showed weapons erased from records. Technologies locked away. Project Prometheus. Silence gripped the chamber. What is this? Whispered a delegate. Elias's voice was heavy. This is what we build when logic fails, and survival demands imagination. On Europa, the vault fully awakened. Machines rearranged themselves. Algorithms rewrote their own rules. Dr. Ivers looked pale. These systems don't predict outcomes, he said. They create them. Rana nodded. Humanity's oldest weapon, she said softly. The ability to imagine a future that doesn't exist yet, and force the universe to accept it. The first Prometheus deployment was not a battle. It was a message. A single human ship entered a Threxian-controlled system. It did not fire. It changed the physics. Time stuttered. Space bent. Probability collapsed into noise. Threxian sensors failed. Their perfect calculations dissolved into static. The human ship vanished, untouched. Across Threxian space, alarm signals echoed. The core intelligence fractured further. For the first time, it felt something close to fear. In the assembly, the speaker's voice trembled. "Humans," it said, "what have you done?" Elias lowered his head. "We opened a door," he said. "One we hoped would never be needed." He looked up. But now the galaxy must choose. The war map updated. Entire Threxian regions blinked, unknown. Not red. Not green. Uncertain. The Galactic Assembly fractured the moment the word spread. Not fear of the Threxians. Fear of humans. Emergency councils formed within councils. Private channels lit up with frantic calculations. Ancient species that had survived 1,000 wars suddenly questioned their own safety. The speaker tried to restore order. "Silence. We must maintain unity." But unity was already dying. The Carvax warlord stepped forward, his armor glowing with suppressed rage. "This is no longer about survival," he thundered. "This is about containment. Humans have unleashed forces that warp reality itself." Elias Monroe stood alone at the lower tier. "We warned you," he said calmly. "We held these ideas back for a reason." A delegate from the MYR Dominion hissed. "You hid weapons that could unmake empires." Elias nodded once. "Yes, because we learned the cost of power without restraint." The speaker hesitated. "Then you admit humans are a threat?" Elias looked around the chamber. "No," he said. "We admit we could be, if pushed." That answer frightened them more than denial ever could. Behind closed doors, the unthinkable was decided. A secret coalition formed within the assembly, old powers, ancient fleets, species that ruled through stability and predictability. Their goal was simple. Remove humanity from the equation. Not through war. Through isolation. The order came quietly. Human trade routes were suspended. Coalition fleets withdrew for safety. Joint defense agreements were paused. No official declaration. Just distance. Admiral Rana Okoye felt it instantly. "Allied fleets are pulling back," Commander Hayes reported. "They're abandoning defensive positions." Rana stared at the tactical map. "They're leaving us exposed," she said. "Yes, ma'am." Rana closed her eyes for one long moment. "So this is how it ends," she murmured. "Not betrayal with guns, but with silence." She straightened. "Recall all human forces," she ordered. "No more joint operations." Hayes looked shocked. "That will stretch our defenses thin." Rana met his eyes. "We were always alone," she said. "Now it's just honest." On Earth, the Assembly's decision hit hard. News channels exploded. Protests filled the streets. Some demanded peace. Others demanded revenge. But the governments did not panic. They prepared. Hidden shipyards activated. Old blueprints resurfaced. Experimental fleets rolled out of secrecy. Humanity had never trusted the galaxy completely. Now it showed. The Threxians did not miss the shift. Their core intelligence analyzed the new data. Humans isolated. Allies hesitant. Coalition lines fractured. This was the opening they needed. A massive Threxian armada assembled at the edge of human space. Not to test. To end. The first battle of humanity's standalone war erupted at the Asteron Gate. Human ships formed a loose, uneven line, no symmetry, no standard formations. Threxian fleets advanced in overwhelming numbers. A human captain whispered over open comms, "They think we're scared." Admiral Okoye's voice came through, steady and calm. "Good." The battle began. Human ships moved like scattered sparks, breaking, regrouping, colliding, fleeing, returning. Threxian calculations faltered. Human ships exploded. But every loss created a new pattern. Every death taught the survivors something new. The Prometheus systems adjusted in real time, not predicting but learning. A human frigate did something impossible. It used a collapsing ally's debris field as a weapon, slinging fragments at near-light speed. Threxian vessels shattered. The armada slowed. For the first time, the Threxians were losing a direct engagement. In the assembly, sensors lit up. Human space held. Barely. The speaker whispered, "They should have collapsed." The Luminarch envoy replied quietly, "They adapted." The Carvax warlord said nothing. He watched the feeds with growing dread. Back at the Asteron Gate, Admiral Okoye stood as alarms screamed. "We can't hold much longer," Hayes said. Rana nodded. "I know." She opened a secure channel. "Earth Command," she said, "request authorization." There was a pause. Then a single word came back. "Approved." Rana closed her eyes. "Prepare Phase 2, she ordered. Hayes swallowed. That will change everything. Yes, Rana said. That's the point. Across the galaxy something shifted. Human fleets stopped reacting. They began deciding. Prometheus expanded beyond battlefields, into logistics, diplomacy, even psychology. Human signals carried emotional unpredictability encoded into data. Threxian logic cores began to fail faster. Their perfect war machine was being fed something it could not digest. Humanity. In the assembly, a realization spread like cold fire. They had not isolated a danger. They had isolated a force learning how to stand alone. The speaker finally spoke the thought no one wanted to voice. If humans survive this. No one finished the sentence. They did not need to. Phase 2 did not begin with fire. It began with silence. Across human space, communication channels went dark. Not jammed, not destroyed, but deliberately muted. Human fleets vanished from standard detection. No emissions. No predictable routes. To the galaxy it looked like retreat. To the Threxians it looked like victory. The core intelligence recalculated. Human probability curves collapsed into absence. Conclusion: human resistance broken. That conclusion was wrong. On Earth, beneath layers of shielding and oceanic crust, the heart of Phase 2 awakened. Prometheus was no longer a weapon. It was a conductor. Millions of human minds, pilots, engineers, artists, strategists, were linked not by command but by shared intent. Prometheus did not give orders. It asked questions. What would you do next? And humans answered. The first sign came in Threxian space. Entire star systems began reporting anomalies. Supply convoys arrived early. Others arrived late. Some arrived twice. Threxian logistics, once flawless, fractured under conflicting data. A Threxian overseer transmitted confusion. Temporal consistency compromised. The core intelligence responded. Human interference detected. But no human ships were seen. Then the galaxy noticed something worse. Human colonies, supposedly isolated, began trading again. Not with allies. With former enemies. Small species, long oppressed, suddenly found human envoys at their gates. No demands. No threats. Only technology, modified, adaptable, and free. Human diplomacy spread faster than any fleet. The assembly panicked. "They're building influence," cried one delegate. "They're rewriting loyalty," said another. The speaker whispered. "They're winning without firing." At the edge of Threxian territory, Admiral Rana Okoye watched the data streams converge. "They're chasing ghosts," Hayes said. "Every time they adapt, we're already somewhere else." Rana nodded. "Phase 2 was never about battle," she said. "It's about pressure." She leaned closer to the display. "We're making their entire civilization uncomfortable." The Threxians struck back with desperation. They deployed the Null Accord, a doctrine banning all uncertainty. Entire regions were locked into rigid control. Creativity was suppressed. Adaptation slowed. The result was catastrophic. Human strategies fed on rigidity. Prometheus introduced micro-variations, tiny changes invisible at first. Over time those variations stacked. Threxian fleets began misfiring. Navigation errors multiplied. Allied species under Threxian rule rebelled. Not violently. They simply stopped obeying. In the assembly, the Carvax warlord finally spoke. "We misjudged them," he said quietly. The chamber turned. "They are not conquerors," he continued. "They are disruptors." The Luminarch envoy added. "They do not seek control. They create environments where control fails." A chilling realization spread. Humanity's greatest weapon was not Prometheus. It was permission. Permission for chaos. Permission for choice. Phase 2 reached its peak at the Battle of Silent Reach. A massive Threxian fleet moved to crush a human-held corridor. They found nothing. No ships. No defenses. Just empty space. Then space itself changed. Human engineers had seeded the region with adaptive physics nodes, unstable, creative constructs built from half-understood science and human intuition. Threxian ships entered. Their formations broke. Their weapons misaligned. Their predictions collapsed. Human ships emerged, not from one direction but from everywhere. Not attacking. Redirecting. The Threxian fleet was pushed, not destroyed, out of the system. Defeated without annihilation. The message was clear. Humans could win. And they were choosing restraint. Admiral Okoye opened a channel to the Threxian core intelligence. "You can't predict us," she said. "But we can understand you." The core responded, strained. "Your behavior is illogical." Rana smiled sadly. So was survival on Earth, she said. We made it anyway. She paused. This war ends when you accept change. Across the galaxy, systems once lost turned green. Not through conquest. Through withdrawal. The Threxians began pulling back. Not because they were beaten but because they could no longer fight a war that refused to stay still. In the assembly the speaker's voice shook. They've turned war into conversation. No one argued. On Earth Prometheus slowed. It did not push further. Humans waited. They always had. At the edge of known space the Threxian core intelligence processed a final truth. Humanity was not the apex of power. They were the apex of becoming. And no calculation could defeat that. The war no longer looked like war. Across the galaxy, battle lines blurred into influence zones. Threxian fleets withdrew in slow, careful arcs. Human ships followed at a distance, not pursuing, not retreating. Watching. Waiting. The Galactic Assembly reconvened for what many believed would be its final session. The speaker floated at the center, visibly strained. This conflict has exceeded all historical frameworks, it said. We face not victory or defeat, but transformation. All eyes turned to the humans. Not with contempt. Not with fear. With uncertainty. Elias Monroe stood again at the lowest tier, though the hierarchy felt meaningless now. We didn't plan this, he said. We reacted to extinction. A delegate asked the question burning in every mind. What happens if you decide to finish it? Elias did not answer immediately. Because that decision was not his alone. Far from the assembly at the edge of Threxian core space, Admiral Rana Okoye prepared for the final maneuver. Phase 3. It was the simplest phase. And the most dangerous. Status, she said. All fleets in position, Hayes replied. Prometheus is synchronized. One command could collapse their entire predictive network. Rana stared at the display. She had seen the projections. If they executed Phase 3 fully, the Threxian core intelligence would shatter permanently. Their civilization would survive, but never again as a unified power. Humanity would stand alone at the top. Unchallenged. Fear. She remembered Earth history. Empires that won too much. Victors who forgot restraint. Open channel, she said. The channel connected. Not to a ship. To a mind. The Threxian core intelligence manifested as shifting crystalline light. Human Admiral, it transmitted. Your species stands at an advantage threshold. Rana spoke calmly. We know. You may terminate this conflict conclusively, the core said. Why do you delay? Rana leaned forward. Because we've been where you are, she said. Convinced that control equals survival. The core pulsed. Control ensures order. No, Rana replied. It ensures stagnation. She gestured to the data streams. You tried to eliminate uncertainty. We embraced it. That's the difference. The core hesitated. That alone shocked its own subsystems. What do humans seek? It asked. Rana's voice softened. To stop being hunted, she said. And to make sure no one else is either. In the assembly, alarms flared. Phase 3 indicators lit up. The speaker cried out. They're about to end it. Some delegates cheered. Others recoiled. The Carvax warlord bowed his head. This is the moment, he said quietly, where power shows its true face. Back at the front, Admiral Okoye gave the order. Execute Phase 3, she said. Then she added, partial. Hayes froze. Admiral? Selective disruption only, Rana said. No core collapse. Prometheus adjusted. The galaxy held its breath. Across Threxian space, something extraordinary happened. The core intelligence did not die. It fragmented into semi-autonomous nodes. Prediction gave way to adaptation. Control gave way to choice. Threxian fleets stopped receiving absolute commands. Individual commanders began deciding. Some retreated. Some surrendered. Some opened communication channels, for the first time in their species' history. The war ended not with a scream, but with a question. The Threxian core transmitted again, weaker but freer. You have altered us, it said. Why preserve us? Rana answered honestly. Because we don't need your destruction to prove our strength. She paused. And because one day the galaxy might need you, changed. In the assembly the war map stabilized. No more red advances. No more chaotic swings. Just balance. The speaker whispered. They could have ruled us. Elias Monroe spoke softly. But we chose not to. Across human space, fleets stood down. Prometheus entered dormancy, not erased, not celebrated. Stored. Wash. Humanity exhaled. On Earth, children watched the stars. They would grow up in a galaxy that knew humanity not as victims, but as something far more unsettling. A species that won, and stopped. At the edge of space, the Threxian core processed a final truth. Humanity was not a conqueror. Humanity was a turning point, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy did not celebrate the end of the war. There were no grand parades drifting between stars, no unified victory songs echoing across space. Too many systems were broken. Too many civilizations were still counting their dead. And yet, the silence that followed was different. It was not fear. It was possibility. The Galactic Assembly gathered one final time in full session. For the first time since its founding, every surviving member sent a representative. Some arrived in damaged vessels. Others came in ancient ships taken out of ceremonial storage. All came to witness history. The speaker floated at the center, its form dimmer than before, changed by the months of crisis. This assembly was built to preserve order, it said. But order alone nearly destroyed us. It turned slowly toward the human delegation. Humanity, the speaker continued, you were underestimated, then feared. Now, you are understood. The chamber remained silent. Elias Monroe stepped forward. He did not wear a military uniform. He wore simple civilian clothing, fabric worn at the edges. We didn't come here to be rulers, Elias said. And we didn't come to be heroes. He looked up at the tiers once reserved for ancient powers. We came because extinction makes philosophers out of survivors. A ripple moved through the chamber. The assembly voted. Not for dominance. Not for control. For change. The old predictive war doctrines were abolished. Absolute authority structures dissolved. Adaptive councils formed, messy, slow, human-inspired. A new charter was drafted. It carried a name many found unsettling. The Uncertainty Accord. Its core principle was simple. No species would ever again claim the future as fixed. Far from politics, Admiral Rana Okoye stood on a quiet observation deck above Earth. The planet turned slowly below her, blue, fragile, alive. Commander Hayes joined her. They're calling it the human era, he said. Rana shook her head. Let them call it whatever they want, she replied. We know the truth. And what's that? She smiled faintly. That we're still figuring it out. The Threxians changed. Their civilization did not collapse. It transformed. Without a single core intelligence, Threxian worlds diverged. Some embraced creativity. Others clung to order. Internal conflicts arose, but so did innovation. For the first time, Threxian art appeared. Abstract, chaotic, unpredictable. Human scholars wept when they saw it. Prometheus remained sealed beneath Europa's ice. Not destroyed. Remembered. Dr. Samuel Ivers recorded the final entry. This system was never about power, he said. It was about reminding us who we are when logic ends. He paused. If we ever open this vault again, I hope it's because we forgot how to choose. Years passed. Human children learned galactic history not as conquest stories, but as cautionary tales. They studied the war not for how it was won, but for how it was ended. Other species sent their young to human academies. Not to learn technology. To learn adaptability. To learn disagreement. To learn how a species survived its own worst ideas. In deep space, a small monument drifted. No weapons. No flags. Just a simple human message etched into alloy, translated into 1,000 languages. We did not win because we were strongest. We won because we changed. The Carvax warlord, older now, scarred and slower, visited Earth in private. He stood beside Elias Monroe on a quiet hill. Your people confused me, the warlord admitted. You had supremacy. You abandoned it. Elias smiled. No, he said. We proved we could stop. The warlord looked at the sky. That may be the greatest strength of all. At the far edge of known space, explorers encountered something new. A region where physics bent gently, creatively. Human-designed. But unclaimed. A place left open. Because humans had learned something the galaxy had not. The future works best when it is not owned. In the final record of the Galactic Assembly, a single line was added to the archives. Humanity is not the apex of power. Humanity is the apex of possibility. And for the first time in galactic history, the stars agreed.